The wind carries a sharp, crisp edge as it sweeps across the frozen expanse of the St. Lawrence River. It is a sound unlike any other, the low, groaning protest of moving ice against the stone foundations of history. You are standing atop the ramparts of Old Quebec, the only fortified city north of Mexico. Below, the narrow streets are blanketed in a heavy, silent snow, lit by the amber glow of flickering lanterns. This is not just a city, it is a living, breathing sanctuary of French heritage in the heart of the north. But what stories do these frozen stones tell? Let us step into the quiet and discover the northern charm of a winter journey through time. To enter the heart of Quebec is to pass through a portal of grey stone and heavy timber. The St. Louis Gate stands as a formidable threshold, a stone archway that has welcomed travellers, soldiers and dreamers for centuries. As we walk beneath its heavy shadow, the sound of the modern world begins to fade. The tyres of distant cars on the asphalt are replaced by the soft, rhythmic crunch of boots on packed snow. The architecture here does not merely suggest the past, it demands your presence in it. These walls, some reaching nearly 30 feet in height, were built to keep empires at bay. Now, they serve a different purpose. They cradle a culture that refused to be erased by the tides of time or the harshness of the elements. Take a moment to run your hand along the stone. It is cold, rough, and pitted by 400 years of Atlantic salt and Laurentian frost. This is limestone, quarried from the very land it protects. In the winter light it takes on a soft, pearlescent quality, reflecting the blue hues of the snow. The engineering of these fortifications was a feat of sheer will. Engineers from the French Royal Corps of Engineers designed these bastions and curtains to follow the natural topography of the cliffside, turning the Cap Diamant into an impregnable fortress. But as you look up at the stone battlements, you realize that while these walls were built for war, they have become a monument to peace and preservation. There is a peculiar silence that accompanies a heavy snowfall in a walled city. The ramparts act as a natural acoustic buffer, trapping the sound of the wind and the hushed whispers of the locals. It is a place where you can hear your own thoughts, punctuated only by the occasional tolling of a distant church bell. As we move deeper into the upper town, the street layout begins to twist and turn, a deliberate design intended to break the charge of an invading army, but today it simply serves to slow our pace. It invites us to linger at every corner, to notice the way the light catches the icicles hanging from the eaves, and to appreciate the resilience of a city that was born from a dream of the new world. But where does this journey truly begin? Walking along the top of the ramparts provides a perspective that few other North American cities can offer. From this height, the world is divided into layers of white, grey, and deep, icy blue. To your left, the cluster of steeply pitched tin roofs and stone chimneys of the upper town looks like a miniature village from a fairy tale. To your right, the land drops away sharply toward the St. Lawrence River, which looks more like a jagged field of white glass than a body of water. This height was the city's greatest defence. The French, and later the British, understood that whoever held the heights of Cap Diamant held the key to the continent. As you walk, the path narrows and widens according to the defensive bastions, the diamond-shaped projections designed to provide a clear line of fire along the walls. Today, these bastions are quiet lookouts, often occupied by a lone bench buried under a foot of fresh powder. There is a profound sense of solitude here. The air is so cold that it feels heavy in your lungs, yet it is incredibly pure. It carries the faint, nostalgic scent of wood smoke from the nearby houses, a smell that has permeated this air since the 1600s. It is the scent of survival. Notice the way the city is layered. The lower town huddles at the base of the cliff, seeking shelter from the river winds, while the upper town stands proud and exposed. The ramparts connect the two worlds. As you move along the wall toward the Citadel, the star-shaped fortress that still serves as an active military installation, the scale of the fortification becomes even more apparent. It is nearly 5 kilometers of continuous stone, a ribbon of history that ties the modern outskirts to the ancient core. In the winter, the ramparts are often deserted, giving you the feeling that the city belongs entirely to you. You can see the smoke rising in straight vertical lines from the chimneys, a sign that the air is perfectly still and the temperature is plummeting. It is a moment of deep, reflective stillness. You might find yourself wondering about the sentries who stood here in centuries past, wrapped in heavy wool coats, staring out into the dark forest or toward the horizon for the white sails of a fleet. Their vigilance is gone, but the atmosphere of the watch remains. And yet, as grand as these walls are, the true heart of the city lies just a few steps away, where the grandest castle in the world awaits our arrival. No image is more synonymous with Quebec, or perhaps even Canada, than the soaring copper roofs and stone towers of the Château Frontenac. It sits upon the cliff like a crown, dominating the skyline with an almost impossible grandeur. But is it a castle or a fortress? In truth, it is neither. It was born from the ambition of the Canadian Pacific Railway in the late 19th century. William Van Horne, the president of the railway, wanted to create a series of grand hotels that would entice wealthy travellers to cross the continent by train. He famously said, "I want to build a hotel that will make people's hair stand on end." And standing before it in the dead of winter, you can see he succeeded. The style is often called Chateauesque, a blend of French Renaissance architecture and Scottish baronial elements. It features steep roofs, ornate gables and circular towers that look as though they belong in the Loire Valley rather than the Canadian Shield. In the winter, the green patina of the copper roofs is often dusted with white, creating a striking contrast against the red brick and grey stone. The hotel was named after Louis de Boisdeix, Count of Frontenac, a legendary governor of New France who famously told a British envoy that his only response to a demand for surrender would come from the mouths of my cannons. As you walk around the base of the chateau, the sheer scale of the building is overwhelming. It has over 600 rooms and has hosted everyone from Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt during the Quebec conferences of World War II to modern royalty and film stars. But for the traveller on foot, the chateau is a sensory anchor. Its presence provides a constant point of reference as you navigate the winding streets. The windows glow with a warm, inviting light, a sharp contrast to the blue, freezing dusk outside. There is a rhythmic sound here, the clattering of horse-drawn carriages, known as calèches, as they trot past the main entrance. The horses' breath mists in the air, and the bells on their harnesses jingle softly, a sound that feels entirely appropriate for this setting. Even though the chateau is a hotel, it functions as the city's living room. People gather in its shadows. Children slide on the snowy slopes nearby, and the entire city seems to revolve around its central tower. It represents the transition of Quebec from a military outpost to a world-class destination. But the chateau is only half of the story, To understand the city's soul, we must step onto the wooden planks of the Dufferin Terrace. Just at the foot of the Château Frontenac lies the Dufferin Terrace, a wide wooden boardwalk that stretches along the edge of the cliff. In the winter, the planks are often slick with a thin layer of frost, and the sound of your footsteps changes to a hollow, rhythmic thud. This terrace is the legacy of Lord Dufferin, a Governor-General of Canada who fell in love with the city in the 1870s. At the time, there were plans to tear down the city walls to allow for urban expansion. Dufferin fought to save them, recognizing their historical value, and commissioned this grand promenade as a gift to the people. Standing on the terrace, you are suspended between the sky and the river. The view is staggering. You can see the ferry crossing the St. Lawrence, carving a dark path through the white ice floes. The wind here is unrelenting, whipping up from the water and stinging your cheeks. But the locals don't seem to mind. They are here for one of the city's oldest winter traditions, the glissade de la Terrace. This is a massive wooden toboggan slide that has been in operation since 1884. The sound of the slide is unmistakable. A low, thunderous roar as the heavy wooden sleds descend at speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour. You can hear the screams of delight and the clatter of the sleds being hauled back up the wooden ramp. It is a reminder that in Quebec, winter is not a season to be endured, but a season to be celebrated. The terrace is also dotted with elegant green and white gazebos, designed in the late Victorian style. In the summer, they provide shade. In the winter, they provide a momentary windbreak and a place to stare out at the horizon. Beneath your feet, hidden from view, lie the St. Louis forts and Château archaeological site. For over 200 years, this was the seat of power for both the French and British governors. The remains of their kitchens, cellars and courtyards are preserved in a subterranean museum. It is a strange thought as you walk on the modern boardwalk. Centuries of colonial history are literally beneath your soles. The terrace is a place of transit and a place of rest. It connects the grand hotels to the military citadel and leads the way down into the oldest parts of the city. But before we descend, we must pay our respects to the man who started it all. At the edge of the terrace stands a monumental bronze figure, his hand raised as if pointing toward the future. This is Samuel de Champlain, the father of New France. He arrived at the base of this cliff in 1608 with a small group of settlers and built a habitation, a fortified trading post. Champlain was more than an explorer. He was a map maker, a diplomat, and a visionary who saw the potential of this rugged landscape. Looking at his statue today, often crowned with a cap of snow, you get a sense of the immense courage it took to settle here. Imagine that first winter in 1608. Of the 28 men who stayed with Champlain, only 8 survived until spring. Scurvy, cold, and isolation were their constant companions. Yet, they stayed. They built a relationship with the local indigenous peoples, specifically the Wendat and the Innu, which was essential for their survival and the success of the fur trade. Champlain's decision to build at the narrowing of the waters, the meaning of the Algonquin word Quebec, was a masterstroke of strategy. It allowed the French to control the flow of goods and information into the interior of the continent. The statue itself is rich in symbolism. Champlain is depicted with his plumed hat and sword, looking every bit the 17th century gentleman adventurer. At the base of the monument, figures represent the spirit of exploration and the transition from the old world to the new. There is a solemnity to this spot. It is the birthplace of French civilization in North America. When you stand here, you are standing at the exact point where the French language took root on this continent, a language that is still spoken with pride in the streets around you. As the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, casting long blue shadows across the snow, the statue of Champlain seems to watch over the city he founded. His gaze is fixed on the river, the very highway that brought him here. It is a reminder that Quebec is a maritime city at heart, defined by the water that flows past its gates. From here, the path leads away from the grand vistas and into the intimate ecclesiastical heart of the upper town, where the spires of great cathedrals reach toward the winter sky. A short walk from the Château brings us to the Place de l'Hôtel de Ville, where the Cathedral Basilica of Notre-Dame de Quebec stands as a testament to the enduring power of faith in the history of New France. Its neoclassical facade is understated, almost austere, but do not let that fool you. This is the oldest parish in North America, and its history is a series of destructions and rebirths. It has been burned down by sieges, destroyed by fire, and rebuilt time and time again, mirroring the resilience of the people who worship here. Stepping inside is like stepping into a warm golden sanctuary away from the biting cold. The transition is sensory. The smell of beeswax candles and old incense replaces the crisp scent of snow. The sound of the city is instantly muffled by thick stone walls. The interior is a masterpiece of gold leaf, intricate wood carvings and stunning stained glass. The high altar, designed to resemble the facade of St. Peter's in Rome, glows under the soft lighting. It is a space that commands silence and reflection. For centuries, the Catholic Church was the primary institution in Quebec, governing not just the spiritual life of the settlers, but their education, healthcare, and social structures. The bishops of Quebec were among the most powerful men in the colony. In the crypt beneath the cathedral lie the remains of many of these figures, including François de Laval, the first bishop of Quebec, who was recently canonized as a saint. His influence can still be felt in the nearby Séminaire de Québec, an educational institution that has stood for over 350 years. In the winter, the cathedral becomes a focal point for the community. During the holidays, a large nativity scene is displayed, and the sound of choral music often drifts out into the snowy square. There is a sense of continuity here. People have been coming to this spot to find comfort from the long northern winters since 1647. Whether you're religious or not, it is impossible not to feel the weight of those centuries. The cathedral is more than a building. It is a repository of the city's collective memory. But the religious history of Quebec isn't confined to the cathedrals. It is also found in the quiet, hidden courtyards of the convents that paved the way for the city's growth. Tucked away on a quiet street in the upper town is the Ursuline Convent, a place of profound peace and historical significance. While the men were building fortifications and exploring the wilderness, a group of extraordinary women arrived in 1639 to build the foundations of society. Led by Marie de l'Incarnation, the Ursulines established the first school for girls in North America. Marie was a mystic, a mother and a formidable administrator who learned indigenous languages to better communicate with and educate the children of the local tribes. The convent is a sprawling complex of buildings that have evolved over centuries. Its high stone walls and shuttered windows suggest a life of cloistered devotion. But the history within these walls is vibrant and active. During the various sieges of Quebec, the convent served as a hospital for soldiers on both sides. It is said that General Montcalm, the French commander who lost the pivotal battle on the Plains of Abraham, is buried within the convent's walls, This connection to the military history of the city adds a layer of solemnity to the site. Walking past the convent in the winter, you might see the flickering light of a candle in a window or hear the faint sound of a piano. The Ursulines are still here, though their numbers have dwindled. They remain the silent guardians of a tradition of education and service that has lasted nearly 400 years. The architecture of the convent is quintessential Quebec. Thick walls, steep roofs to shed the heavy snow, and small windows to keep in the precious heat. There is a special quality to the air in this part of the city. It is quieter here, away from the tourist shops and the grand hotels. The streets are narrow, and the snow piles high against the stone foundations. You can almost feel the presence of the generations of women who walked these halls, teaching, praying, and surviving the brutal winters. Their story is a reminder that the northern charm of Quebec is built on a foundation of incredible grit and determination. As we leave the quiet of the convent, we head toward the edge of the city, where the military history of Quebec takes on a more imposing form. High above the river, perched on the highest point of Cap Diamant, lies the Citadel de Quebec. This is the largest British-built fortress in North America, a massive star-shaped structure that remains an active military installation to this day. It is the home of the Royal 22e Regiment, the only French-language regular force regiment in the Canadian Forces. Walking toward the Citadel in winter is a stark experience. The vast open fields surrounding it, known as the glacis, are buried in deep drifts of snow, making the grey stone walls look even more impenetrable. The Vauban style of the Citadel, characterized by its star shape, was designed to eliminate blind spots and allow defenders to provide overlapping fire. Ironically, by the time the Citadel was completed in the mid-19th century, its walls were already becoming obsolete due to advancements in artillery. However, its presence was a powerful deterrent. It was built by the British to defend against a potential American invasion that never came. Today, it serves as a ceremonial site and the secondary residence of the Governor-General of Canada. In the winter, the famous changing of the guard is not performed, but the Citadel remains a place of great tradition. You can see the soldiers in their winter gear, and the regiment's mascot, a goat named Baptiste, is a local celebrity. The view from the Citadel's bastions is the most comprehensive in the city. You can see for miles down the St. Lawrence, watching the chunks of ice swirl in the current. It is a place that feels exposed to the elements, a true sentinel of the north. There is a certain gravity to the Citadel. It represents the end of the colonial era and the birth of a modern nation. The transition from French to British rule was a traumatic moment in the city's history, but the Citadel is where those two histories eventually merged. The French-speaking soldiers who guard it today are a living symbol of that reconciliation. As we turn our backs on the high walls of the fortress, we move toward the open fields where the fate of the city and the continent was once decided in a matter of minutes. Just outside the city walls lie the Plains of Abraham, a vast expanse of rolling hills that today serves as Quebec's version of Central Park. But beneath the peaceful snow lies the most hallowed ground in Canadian history. It was here, on a September morning in 1759, that the British Army under General James Wolfe climbed the cliffs and surprised the French forces under General Louis-Joseph de Montcalm. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes, but it changed the course of North American history forever. Both generals were mortally wounded in the conflict, and France eventually ceded its North American territories to Britain. In the winter, the plains are transformed into a snowy playground. The same hills where soldiers once charged are now filled with cross-country skiers, snowshoers, and families sledding. There is a beautiful irony in this. A place defined by a violent struggle for empire has become a sanctuary for leisure and community. The air here is wide and open, a contrast to the narrow, claustrophobic streets of the walled city. You can feel the true scale of the Canadian winter here, with nothing to block the wind that whistles across the fields. As you walk the trails, you'll encounter Martello Towers, small circular stone forts built by the British in the early 19th century to bolster the city's defences. They stand like lonely chess pieces on the landscape, their thick walls designed to withstand cannon fire. Today, they are silent observers of the winter fun. The plains are also home to the Musée National des Beaux-Arts du Québec, which sits at the edge of the park, its modern glass architecture reflecting the snowy trees. There is a specific feeling to walking the plains at dusk. The sky turns a deep violet, and the lights of the city begin to twinkle in the distance. You can imagine the ghosts of 1759, the red coats and the blue coats, standing amidst the white. But the sound that reaches you now is not the roar of cannons, but the rhythmic swish-swish of skis on groomed trails. It is a place of profound memory and vibrant life. It reminds us that while history is permanent, the way we live within it can change. Now, however, the temperature is dropping, and the lights of the lower town are calling us to descend from the heights. To get from the upper town to the lower town, you have two choices, and both are iconic. The first is the Escalier Cassicou, or the Breakneck Stairs. Despite the intimidating name, these stairs are a beautiful series of wooden and stone landings that offer stunning views of the Petit Champlain district below. In the winter, the handrails are cold to the touch, and you must mind your footing on the cleared but often icy steps. The name actually dates back to the 17th century, though the current stairs are much safer than the treacherous paths of the past. As you descend, the perspective shifts dramatically. The grand Château Frontenac looms above you, its towers seemingly touching the clouds, while the intimate dollhouse-like buildings of the lower town rise up to meet you. The sound changes too. The wind of the heights is replaced by the echo of voices bouncing off the close-set stone walls. You can smell the savoury aroma of traditional French-Canadian cooking, onions, spices, and slow-cooked meats, wafting from the basement kitchens of the restaurants nearby. The second option is the funicular, a glass-walled cable car that has been carrying passengers since 1879. It is a short, magical ride that feels like travelling through time. As the car slides down the 45-degree angle of the cliff, the rooftops of Petit Champlain unfold beneath you like a pop-up book. The windows are often etched with frost, framing the view in a delicate, crystalline border. It is a moment of suspended animation, a slow-motion transition between two worlds. Arriving at the bottom, you feel as though you have stepped into a different era. The lower town is where the city began, and its scale is human and immediate. The buildings are older, the streets are narrower, and the atmosphere is thick with the scent of history and wood smoke. This is the Petit Champlain district, often called the most beautiful street in North America. But is it just a tourist attraction, or is it something more? As we step onto the cobblestones, we begin to realise that this is where the true heart of Quebec's resilience resides. Stepping onto Rue du Petit Champlain is like stepping into a 17th century French village that has been perfectly preserved in a glass snow globe. The street is so narrow that you can almost touch the buildings on both sides. The architecture is purely French colonial sturdy stone walls, colourful shutters and dormer windows peeking out from high-pitched roofs. In the winter, the street is decorated with thousands of tiny white lights, and the lanterns that hang from the buildings cast a warm, flickering amber glow on the snow-covered cobblestones. This area was originally a small fur trading post, and later a bustling dockside neighbourhood. It has survived floods, landslides, and the decline of the shipping industry. In the 1970s, it was a crumbling district slated for demolition, but it was saved by a cooperative of local artisans and visionaries who saw its potential. Today, it is a vibrant community of shops, bistros, and galleries. There is a sense of intimacy here that you don't find in the upper town. You can see into the windows of the shops, where weavers, jewelers, and painters carry on traditions that have been part of Quebec's identity for generations. The sensory details here are overwhelming in the best possible way. The sound of a lone fiddler playing a traditional folk tune might drift through the air, their music mingling with the soft crunch-crunch of pedestrians. The air is cold, but the visual warmth of the lanterns and the festive decorations makes it feel cozy rather than harsh. You might stop to warm your hands at an outdoor fire pit, where the smell of cedar wood creates a nostalgic, rustic atmosphere. There is a beautiful detail to notice: the fleur-de-lis symbols integrated into the ironwork and the signs. It is a reminder of the city's French roots and its pride in its heritage. As you walk, you'll pass the house of Louis Joliet, the explorer who mapped the Mississippi River. Every stone here has a name and a story attached to it. It is a place where history isn't something you read about in a book, it's something you walk through. But as beautiful as Petit Champlain is, it is also a testament to the incredible toughness of the people who built it. How did they survive the winters of the 1600s in these stone houses? The stone houses of Petit Champlain in the lower town were not built just for aesthetics. They were machines for survival. The walls are often 2 to 3 feet thick, constructed from rubble stone and lime mortar. This created a massive thermal mass. Once the house was heated by a central fireplace, the stones would hold that heat for hours, even as the temperature outside dropped to 30 below zero. The windows are small, designed to minimize heat loss, and were originally covered with heavy wooden shutters to block the biting river winds. One of the most characteristic features of these buildings is the steep pitch of the roofs. In Quebec, snow is not just a seasonal guest, it is a permanent resident for 5 months of the year. A flat roof would collapse under the weight of several tons of snow. The steep angles allowed the snow to slide off, often with a thunderous crump that could be heard throughout the neighbourhood. You'll also notice the massive stone chimneys, often multiple per house, which were the literal heart of the home. The fireplace was where the cooking happened, where the family gathered for warmth, and where the stories that formed the basis of Quebecois folklore were told. Inside these homes, life in the 17th and 18th centuries was a constant battle against the cold. Water would freeze in the basins overnight, and the wind would whistle through even the smallest cracks. The settlers used everything at their disposal: heavy wool blankets, fur pelts, and Catalogne rugs. They also developed a unique culinary style designed to provide the calories needed to work in the cold. Dishes like tourtière, a hearty meat pie, and pea soup became staples of the winter diet. Looking at these stone walls today, you can see the marks of the mason's tools. There is a rugged honesty to the construction. These buildings have stood for 300 years, Through wars, fires, and the relentless cycle of freeze and thaw, they are a physical manifestation of the word resilience. As we walk past these ancient homes, the path opens up into a small, perfectly proportioned square, the very spot where the story of Quebec began. We have reached Place Royale, a cobblestone square that feels more like a corner of Paris or Rouen than North America. This is the most historic square in the city, the exact site where Samuel de Champlain built his first habitation in 1608. For decades, this square was the heart of the colony's commercial and social life. It was here that the fur traders met, where the news from France was read aloud, and where the filles du roi, the king's daughters, arrived to marry the settlers and build the population of New France. In the centre of the square stands a bust of Louis XIV, the Sun King, who took personal control of the colony in 1663. His presence is a reminder that for a long time, Quebec was a direct extension of the French crown. Dominating one side of the square is the Church of Notre-Dame des Victoires. Built in 1688, it is the oldest stone church in North America. Its name, Our Lady of Victories, commemorates the French repulse of British naval attacks in 1690 and 1711. The church is small and humble, but its significance is immense. Inside, a model of a French sailing ship hangs from the ceiling, a votive offering for the safe arrival of the fleet. In the winter, Place Royale is breathtaking. The square is often centered around a large, beautifully lit Christmas tree, and the surrounding stone houses, with their symmetrical windows and colourful doors, create a perfect architectural frame. The ground is often covered in a pristine layer of snow, as if the city is holding its breath. There is a mural nearby, the Fresque des Québécois, which covers the entire side of a building. It depicts 400 years of the city's history and the figures who shaped it. It is a visual summary of everything we have seen on our walk. Standing in Place Royale, you can feel the layers of time. You are standing where the first gardens were planted, where the first laws were written, and where the first families of Quebec began their lives. The silence here is profound. The high walls of the surrounding houses block out the sounds of the modern city, leaving you alone with the ghosts of the past. It is a place of arrival and a place of beginning. But as the blue hour descends, that magical time between sunset and night, the square takes on a new ethereal quality. The snow begins to glow with a soft reflected light, and the lanterns cast long dancing shadows across the cobblestones. The sun has disappeared behind the cliffs of the upper town, and we have entered the blue hour. This is when Old Quebec is at its most enchanting. The sky is a deep velvety indigo, and the snow on the ground seems to absorb and radiate that same cool light. The yellow glow from the windows of the bistros and homes becomes more intense, inviting us in from the cold. Our walk is coming to an end, but the impressions of this city will remain long after the warmth returns to our fingers. What makes Quebec so unique is not just its stone walls or its European architecture. It is the spirit of the people who have kept this culture alive. They have maintained their language, their traditions, and their joie de vivre in the face of incredible odds. Quebec is a North American city with a French soul, a place where the old world and the new world have not just met, but have merged into something entirely original. It is a city that embraces the winter, finding beauty in the ice and warmth in the community. As you look back up toward the Château Frontenac, its lights shining like a beacon on the hill, you realize that this city is a sanctuary. It is a place where time slows down, where the textures of stone and the sound of snow encourage a deeper kind of reflection. We have walked the ramparts, explored the cathedrals, and descended into the very cradle of the settlement. We have felt the bite of the wind and the warmth of the fire. In doing so, we have connected with a story of resilience that spans 4 centuries. The streets are quiet now. A few locals walk by, their breath misting in the cold air, perhaps heading home to a warm meal and a glass of wine. The flickering lanterns continue their watch, just as they have for generations. There is a peace here that is hard to find in the modern world, a quiet, glowing sanctuary in the heart of the north. As we take one last look at the snowy streets of the lower town, we carry with us the memory of this northern charm, a reminder that even in the harshest winter, there is a beauty that never fades. It is a beauty built on stone, sustained by faith, and warmed by the hearts of those who call this walled city home. Thank you for joining me on this slow winter journey through the historic streets of Old Quebec. I hope you felt the crisp air and the warmth of the history we explored together. If you enjoyed this atmospheric walk, please subscribe to Daydreaming Travel Stories for more immersive journeys around the world. I would love to hear from you. What is your dream winter destination? Or perhaps you have a favourite memory of this beautiful walled city. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until our next journey, keep dreaming, and may your paths be filled with the same quiet charm we found here today. Goodbye for now.